This is the veteran Jack Vaughn, the last real professional wrestler, and you are listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Hey, this is Jimmy Street, host of the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Hear the life and times of professional wrestler Wolfie D. From his time in the territories with PG-13 to his time in WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA, and more. Nothing is off limits and nothing will be held back. Thanks again for tuning in. Here he is, Wolfie D.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Live and in Color. Wolfie D, you know who I am, and I got my boy Jimmy across the street. And today we have got a special guest, and when I say special, it's because of his videos. It's funny shit that I have seen, and I don't watch shit. And Jimmy can attest to this. These videos, pro wrestling versus indie, or veteran guy, it's just very funny skits that he's doing, and I really believe it's helping him get over in a world now where social media can kill the wrestling business, but if you use it the right way, it can also kind of help you. What do you think about that, Jimmy?
I mean, dude, you said it the best. He's actually using social media in a way where, like most guys are like, I want to fight John Johnson tomorrow night. And it's like they're friends.
This is my list of people I want to work in 2023.
Yeah, exactly. And they're friends. They're friends. All of them are friends but it's like, working somebody, I guess, is different, but if you're in like a blood feud with somebody and you're like trying to, figure out a way to blow that off. Now, again, all that doesn't even happen much anymore, but you're like friends with him and you have regular, like he's liking stuff and then he likes it or makes the angry face on Facebook or whatever. It's just like, I don't know, man. Social media is dumb anymore and it's kind of annoying to see. But at the same time, Jack has turned it around and is actually using it to get himself over. Not only, like you just said, I mean, you said it perfectly. So,
yeah. And unfortunately, I think we need to talk about the death of one of the pioneers, the Memphis wrestling scene, man, Jerry Jarrett. We had Jerry Lawler just had a stroke. Now we have Jerry Jarrett dead. And it sucks, man, because I'm going to tell you something. And, we've had all these shows where I talk about how me and Jamie got started and whatnot. And Jerry Jarrett is the reason that the name PG-13.
Yeah, that's a great point because, like, if he hadn't approved that gimmick, let's just say, do you think y'all would have kept doing it, or could that have led to you all maybe trying something different? Or
I don't know what we would have tried. I mean, at that point in time, that was it. I mean, that was, let me get in Memphis. In Memphis.
It worked, and y'all got into it, but at the same time, woulda, coulda, shoulda,
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great gimmick. It was like we know it was something that absolutely was ripped off several times. So to know that it was the originator of that gimmick, then if you think about it, then it couldn't have not worked. But again, maybe
we didn't walk into his office going, hey, we need 4 weeks worth of rap videos. That was his idea.
Right. So he bought in and then started thinking,
Yeah. And saw it. And like I said, one of the funniest things was Jamie said, if we go in there and we make him laugh, we got a job. And we did. Yeah. And he was sick and all that kind of stuff. But he laughed and he loved it. And man, pushed us to the moon right there at the beginning. Fired us once. We went to Mexico, came back, and then Randy Hales was booking, and the rest is history. But man, very, very sad day. I know when this airs, it's going to be a week later or whatever. But man, I owe Jerry Jarrett, and Jamie does too. His dad owes Jerry Jarrett. Jerry Jarrett made a lot of people, and you just gotta give it up for that. Some people, it's the wrestling business, and some people did not like him. He was all good to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, dude, that's, to me, to think about if Jerry Jarrett had not existed, what may not have existed. There's so many things that he was a true innovator. He was the dude that was going to go run WWF in Vince's stead. Think about that. Vince was thinking there's a chance he was going up the river, as they say. Yeah. And had that happened, Jerry Jarrett was going to go run the place. That is how much that dude is trusted. You know, that's the biggest. That's like Roger Goodell saying, "Hey, Wolfie D, I liked how you called that pass there. You reacted well to how they did that. I want you to come run the show." You know, that is huge amount of trust.
Absolutely, man. You can't say enough about it, man. Rest in peace, Jerry, and thank you for everything you did for me.
Yeah. Hey, rest in peace, Jerry, and thank you for everything you did for pro wrestling. Seriously. You know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I didn't know him, unfortunately. He was a guest on our list that was kind of like, could we?
And we probably could have, and that's probably on me, man. Probably that's probably on me. But anyway, man, sad day. For wrestling, and I feel for Jeff and the whole family, man. So anyway, we're gonna get off the morbid stuff, and we're gonna talk to Jack Vaughn coming up. For those of you that don't know, this is the guy that's putting out videos that are hilarious. And Jimmy, you will attest, I don't watch a lot of shit, but I watch his stuff and it's funny. And you came to me and you said, "Hey, what about this guy?" I was like, "Yeah, let's get him on here." So, I think we should take a break and come back and talk to him and laugh a little bit.
Sounds great, man. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hey, folks, to get your official Live and in Color with Wolfie D merchandise, go to prowrestlingtees.com/live Wolfie D. Check it out.
If you're listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D on Apple Podcast and like what you're hearing, go ahead and leave a 5-star rating. And while you're at it, write a review. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you'd like to hear in the future. It's very important to us and always appreciated. Thanks again.
All right, guys, we're back. And as promised, our special guest for today is Jack Vaughn, the veteran Jack Vaughn. He claims to be the last real professional wrestler, and you may know him from some of his hilarious skits that he does on YouTube, social media, whatever. That's how I found out about him, and we're going to talk about that. But Jack, how are you this morning?
I am doing very, very well. Thank you guys very much for having me.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. So first I want to ask, what gave you the idea to start doing these skits, man?
So are you guys familiar with a wrestler by the name of Brutal Bob Evans?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I'm not. I eat at Bob Evans quite a bit, but I don't know.
You know Brutal Bob, Wolfie. You don't know Brutal Bob?
I may. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you probably...
Well, I'm sure you've come across Brutal Bob. He's been around for a long time. Uh-huh. I attended a seminar that he did at a show that I was at. And I've known Bob for a while, and I mainly just attended just because I know Bob just has a lot of good information. And in this seminar... It was almost like he was talking to mostly me because I was kind of the only one asking questions. But he actually suggested to me, because he liked the way that I kind of handled my social media. He's like, "You need to do more video content." And he actually said, I was really against TikTok because I kind of hate it. But he suggested, he's like, "You should do TikTok." And that's really all it was. And then it was a couple of days later, I filmed a couple things, and I posted one. The first one I ever posted, I posted at like midnight because I was just trying to get used to using the platform. Didn't really think much of it. And then 24 hours after that first video, it had like 200,000 views.
Wow.
Yeah, it just kind of blew up immediately.
So I've never serenaded anyone on our show, so you will be the first. And I actually, this first one, stole off of social media. I saw it somewhere and I changed it a little bit. But it goes like this. It goes, if you're wrestling and you know it, slap your thigh. If you're wrestling and you know it, slap your thigh. If you're wrestling and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're wrestling and you know it, slap your thigh.
All right.
What do you think?
Beautiful.
I got another.
I love it.
I got another one. Now this is
okay.
Right here. You put your right thigh in, you put your thigh out, you put your right thigh in, and you slap it all about. You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. That's what it's all about.
That's awesome.
You know, I do need to find some new entrance music, so I think I just found it.
I was gonna suggest that. I was gonna say that could be your entrance music, man. Man.
You got Ryan Rocket though, bro. I would use him instead.
You would use him over my hokey pokey?
No, the hokey pokey is always awesome by my standards, absolutely. So
I could get Ryan to throw some rock and guitar over the lyrics.
Oh, totally.
There you go. I think we're on to something.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, and like I said, I don't do a lot of research on the guests that I have on if I don't know them stuff, and that's just me, and that's no insult to anyone. So did you start at OVW training, or someone else trained you?
No, so I'm actually fairly recent to OVW. I started in 2004 training with Shark Boy.
Okay.
Shark Boy, okay.
Yeah, my boy Shark Boy. Mm-hmm. Saw him at a convention last year. Love that dude. Okay, so he trained you, and then you just kind of got on with OVW recently.
Yeah, so I haven't been the veteran for my entire career, obviously. But yeah, I started off just kind of wrestling a lot in the Midwest, mostly just the Cincinnati area, and took a few years off. And then when I decided to come back to wrestling and actually wanted to give it another, like a real shot at trying to make something of it, that's when I kind of developed the veteran character. And then COVID hit immediately after developing the veteran character. So that was fun.
Yeah.
So probably just within a little over a year was when I made my debut with OVW.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Cool.
So, I'm the research guy around here. So Jack, so I'm going to kind of try to bug you here a little bit. So obviously you said that you're not the veteran Jack Vaughn all your life. So what was it like growing up, man? Where were you from? Where were you born? Did you play sports? What kind of stuff, did you love wrestling early on? What was your early days like?
Yeah. So I grew up in a small town called Franklin, Ohio.
Oh yeah.
Most famous now for Luke Kennard, who plays in the NBA.
Nice. Okay.
And I like to say, I just want to say that when he was a kid, I was in high school and was coaching him at his basketball camps. So I am responsible for Luke Kennard. I'm going to say that. Yeah. I basically just grew up a wrestling fan. My dad was a fan, so I grew up watching with him and my brother, and then just never got out of it really. Growing up, I was involved in sports. Baseball and basketball were my two big ones. Yeah. And like a lot of people my age, I did backyard wrestling with my friends in high school.
Oh yeah.
And then when we graduated, we all decided that we wanted to actually get trained and get into the business. And it was right around that time that someone at my gym told me about the ad in the paper that they saw for Shark Boy's training school. So I told a couple of my friends, and we pretty much all signed up and started from there.
Yeah, nice. So Franklin, Ohio, that's, the Ohio area. I got to ask you, man, because I grew up as a huge Cincinnati Reds fan. Are we also talking to a Cincinnati Reds fan?
Oh, absolutely. Die hard.
Yeah, we're struggling, right?
They're always going to be my team, but they're on pace to win about 7 games this year.
Yeah, if that, and that's in spring training, maybe. So anyway,
listen, as much as the Bengals have been doing great the last couple of years, and as much as I love seeing that, I would much rather have a Reds World Series.
Me too. Yeah, 100%. It's 19. When were you born, Jack? How old are you?
1985. I'm 37.
Okay, so you were 5 years old when we won the World Series. So, yep. Okay, you were at least alive. So there's that,
I have vague memories of it.
Yeah. So anyway, a longtime Reds fan myself. My dad's from Pikeville, Kentucky, and so kind of grew up in that area. But long story short, what's the Cincinnati scene like as far as that goes? What's the Ohio scene like? I know Marion Fontaine a little bit from a another interview I've done. But how's the Ohio wrestling scene?
So specifically Southwest Ohio, where I'm from, it's very strong. When I first started, there were like 5 companies in Cincinnati, and I spent most of my time working with Roger Ruffin at the Northern Wrestling Federation.
Okay.
And, back then HWA was still around. There was IWI, which I think became, there was also Queen City Wrestling, which became New Era Wrestling. I think there was so many companies at the time, and it kind of died out for a little bit to where it was kind of just the NWF, and then up toward Dayton you had Rockstar Pro.
Yeah.
And then over the last few years, wrestling in Cincinnati's kind of had a resurgence. One of the companies out here that I work for the most is Future Great Wrestling, which was run by Cody Hawk for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And there's now Ascend Pro Wrestling. There's a company very aptly named Cincy Wrestling out here. So the Cincinnati wrestling scene is very good. There's a lot of good talent. A lot of them are young, so they have some room to grow. But for the most part, there's a lot of good wrestling out here.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's all.
Have we ever crossed paths, Jack?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I was trying to think back because the Ohio area, I only actually worked a few of the Outlaws in Cincinnati. Like, what was it? JT, what was his name? JT Thunder, JT Lightning, one of those two?
JT Lightning, yeah.
Yeah, that ran Cincinnati, I believe it was, or Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. But anyway, I was wondering, when you said Ohio, had I ever run into you before? So I really love these videos, and I'm going back to that. Y'all can talk about baseball later.
Yes, we can.
I really like the one where you're talking about calling a match with a veteran guy, and he just basically cussing the whole time.
That's Wolfie. That was Wolfie D.
It's so bad. Everything, and I'd be honest with you, I can't remember all the verbiage you used and everything, but I don't know if you put in bingity bang boom in there, or boom boom boom, or give you the deal, the fucking deal. That's what I always say. I'll be like, all right, you fucking just shoot me off, bang, give me the fucking deal, bingity boom bang boom, then we'll roll over here. But I love that part. What gave you the idea for that one?
So it was actually because, do you guys know Dean Jablonski? Dean the Dream Jablonski?
Oh, I know Mike Jablonski, but not Dean.
He wrestled with us for a long time. He was signed to WWE for a little while, but I don't think he wrestles much anymore. But I've known Dean for a long time, and it was on one of my videos about the kinds of wrestlers you meet in every locker room.
Yeah.
And he left me a comment that was like, you should have the old veteran that drops the F-bomb every other word. And I'm like, oh, well, that's a whole video.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what that happened. So yeah, in that video, I basically just dropped a bunch of F-bombs and picked them out. I didn't do any of the bip, bip, bip. That's my go-to is bip, bip, bip.
Bip, bip, bip.
But give me a bip, bip, bip. And then, so yeah, that's kind of how that happened.
Yeah.
And, it's funny because like I do certain videos and I'm like, oh, well, certain videos I know are kind of going to rub some people the wrong way, but then on other ones, I'm like, oh, well, surely everyone's going to like this one. And then people on that specific video, I had a lot of people like, yeah, an old territory guy wouldn't call it beforehand. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not, I understand that. I'm making fun of their colorful language, guys.
Right.
But yes, we did kind of, just not as much.
Yeah. Right.
Well, yeah, I know that when I first started, if I worked with a veteran guy, I mean, they were still calling stuff in the back.
Yeah. You plus two, and somebody that you really don't know, and you want to make sure they're on the same page with you. If you don't know if they go out there and call it in the ring, you want to make sure that, what kind of, just by talking to a person, you can gather whether they're, decent or not, really.
Right.
So that's the reasoning for that. I mean, when I very first started, you didn't have that opportunity because the dressing rooms were not connected.
Sure.
And that's, you couldn't do that shit. But, sometimes we would, at TV, see, we were all together. So you might say, hey, tonight in Nashville, let's try this. You know what I mean? So, and then you do this match around the whole loop. So you had it all down. So,
I feel very fortunate that I've been around long enough to where I can call a match in the ring because I've had to do it enough. And I'd be curious to, like, these days, if we had separate locker rooms, how many wrestlers would actually be comfortable calling it in the ring?
Not many.
Wow.
Like it's a skill that I help train some guys at Future Great Wrestling, and like I always tell them, like, learn to call this stuff on the fly, because if something's going wrong, or if somebody gets hurt, or fans just aren't feeling what they're doing, you got to be able to switch it.
100% accurate. 100.
What is it Ricky Morton said when he said, man, in the locker room these days, if you go to take a piss, you got to duck 2 clotheslines. And
have you been in the wrestling dressing room these days and people are back there going over their match? Okay, other day I had to piss and I had to duck 3 clotheslines, reverse 2 hip toss, and leapfrog before I got to the bathroom. Okay.
Oh, man. Oh, that's hilarious.
What the hell?
That's good, Rick.
Said about in the back, all the guys are doing their stuff. And, yeah. So first of all, let me just say this. I did this on purpose. I wanted you and Wolfie together on a show. This was me. This was my little dreamscape here of listening to you two talk, because you've taken on what I would consider like an amalgam of all who came before you, your gimmick. Jack, who would you say that if you, not to sit necessarily say like I picked this guy and this guy. I mean, like, do you feel like you have taken anything from guys to put that gimmick together, or is it literally just pieces of guys you've met as you've gone along the path?
It's sort of a mixture of a bunch of wrestlers that I have really come to admire as I've gotten older.
Okay.
So like, when I first, started watching wrestling, it was in the late 80s. So I didn't get to see a lot of the heyday of certain wrestlers, like specifically guys like, like Bruiser Brody. I never got to see Brody really.
Right.
And, WWF was what my family and I watched. So I missed out on a lot of that great late 80s, early 90s stuff that was going on with Jim Crockett and WCW. So as I've gotten into the business and as I got older, I became a huge fan of guys like Arn Anderson and Stan Hansen and guys like that. So when I put this gimmick together, it actually kind of started almost like a parody of 80s wrestling. I was kind of, the first few matches, I was still trying to figure out what I wanted it to be. And there was a lot more sort of comedy in the actual wrestling, but I kind of had a coming to Jesus moment with myself. And I was like, okay, do I want this to be like a parody of 80s wrestling, or do I want to be Arn Anderson? And I was like, I want to be the modern day Arn Anderson. So that's kind of how the gimmick has been formed.
Yeah, I was describing you to somebody the other day, and I was like, just imagine if like Arn Anderson or Stan Hansen was in a coma, okay? And then they woke up and they had not aged a bit, and now they're in 2023, and they're trying to figure out the scene today. So definitely a huge compliment to you on that. I got to also compliment that power stash, man. That's a Sam Elliott soup strainer if I've ever seen one, man. So, kudos on that one as well.
So the mustache is actually just a matter of circumstance, because I had I used to just have like a full beard, and when COVID happened, I work in my shoot job. I work in a hospital, and I had to shave it off.
Okay.
So and then I was kind of clean shaven for a few months, and I was like, well, I can still grow a sick mustache and have it under my mask. Yeah. And then now it's become part of the character. Like I can't get rid of the stash. It adds so much to the personality of the gimmick.
Yeah, it does. I agree. I love it.
Out of curiosity, what do you do at the hospital?
I am a respiratory therapist.
Oh, nice. Cool. Okay.
Very cool.
So guys, if you can't breathe,
like me.
Talk to Wolfie.
All my fucking problems.
Yeah. So, what's funny is you carry yourself in a demeanor that shows you care about the business. I'm in no way the level of veteran that Wolfie D or even you. I had a small part to play in Nashville scene about 10, 12 years ago, but I would not consider myself anything majorly knowledgeable. But what I have done is sat under the learning tree of someone like Wolfie D and tried to learn. And what I can tell about you, and you can just tell by the way that you work, the footwork in the ring, you can tell that you consider it an art form, not just something to to do on the weekend. You can really tell you're giving it your all, man. I got to give you kudos on that for sure.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, the big thing for me is I've kind of going back to like, I loved basketball back in the 90s a lot more than I love it today.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Part of it is just because but if you think about it, they do, like, wrestling and basketball kind of have had a similar trajectory where, like, now basketball is a lot more flashy. It's a lot of 3-pointers. It's not a lot of fundamentals.
Right.
Wrestling's kind of done that same thing. And that's what my big thing is in the ring is, like, no matter what I do, even if it's something small, I want it to look perfect. And not even perfect, but like I want it, at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're, simulating a fight. So I want everything that I do in the ring fundamentally to look like I'm trying to win a fight. And I think that's something that's lost in a lot of wrestling today.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. The other thing that I think, and this is just, to me, society in general, there used to be a saying in the business, don't get rabbit ears, meaning, especially if anybody would yell boring, fucking grab a Holt and go to the ground. Fuck you. You know what I'm saying? And now we're allowing the fans to dictate what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's like a lot of guys they're trying to structure matches around getting the big pop rather than, telling a good story.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, who can I impress Meltzer? Can I make the people chant "Holy shit"? All that stuff. Instead of it goes back to what I say all the time, man. It's just like, I know magic isn't fucking real, but I really don't want a guy to tell me how he did the tricks. I just don't.
Right.
I feel like people need to. I get it that you want to see what's going on the inside, but they're basically giving away fucking finishes and shit before the matches even happen on the internet. It's fucking ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me ask you this, because it's kind of going with what Wolfie's saying. What Wolfie just said sounds very similar to what Al Snow would say. And a lot of the things that you've said sound like something Al Snow would say. We've had Al Snow on the show very early on, long time ago, actually. And I can imagine that he saw something in you immediately just by the way that you carry yourself. How has your relationship been with Al Snow since you've been at OVW?
I feel like Al and I have a good relationship. So Al and I are kind of like, Al's kind of a quiet guy. Yeah. He's got a very dry sense of humor.
Yeah. He's hilarious.
I do too. And he, and I'm also kind of a quiet guy. I've always kind of been an introverted guy, but as I've, been with OVW longer, I kind of have opened up a bit more. But no, Al and I get along great. For a long time, I wasn't sure if Al actually liked me or not, because he is such a quiet guy. But no, like Al's a good dude, man.
What have you learned from him that you can share with us today? Is there any one thing that pops out?
Nothing, like, not one singular thing, but like working with OVW has been my first experience working with a television type wrestling show.
Sure.
So, I mean, even for someone like me who was around for a long time prior to that, that was much different than what I was used to. So just over the past, year, I feel like I've grown so much as a wrestler just in terms of understanding the TV style of wrestling and understanding sort of how that type of wrestling works.
That's cool.
And how much goes into it. Like the production at OVW is crazy. Like you can see like the production area where they're like, counting down, going to break and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, this is nuts. Like, you don't see this on the indies.
Right. Yeah. You all are putting out a great product up there, man, for sure. Whenever I get a chance to watch it, I'm always impressed. I definitely enjoy it. I think y'all have a great roster going on up there. So, Wolfie D, of course, back there when Slash and Brock Lesnar and John Cena and Batista were all there. So you got a lot of legends in front of you, but at the same time, y'all are definitely putting out a great product that's very impressive. So definitely keep that up. We've actually had 2023's kind of been OVW year so far, right, Wolfie?
Yes, we've had
Doug and
Who was the other one? Doug.
We had Ryan Von Rocket. Then, of course, Jax Dane had worked at OVW some too, and we kind of had all kinds of. So
you're actually lucky, Jack. You got that new building. When I worked at OVW, we were dressing outside, out back, and two sides of the ring were basically up against the fucking wall. You didn't have much room on the outside either. And it was a bit different, man. That new arena, I actually did work at one time, quite a few years ago, but Dinsmore had me come up and just do a special little appearance thing. But yeah, that new building is so much nicer. But I remember it from the day Danny started that thing. Danny Davis started it, and it's come a long way. That's what I was telling Al and Doug and them. It's like, did you ever think that the small thing that Danny started would turn into what it is now? You know?
Yeah. Well, you got to be there in the glory days. That's how you should phrase it.
Yes. There was definitely some talent there, man. There was a whole lot of talent back then. That was like 2000, right? 99, 2000, something like that. I think when I was there. Yeah. And I went to TNA after that. But there was definitely talent. A lot of dudes that were there have gone on to make some big fucking money and
superheroes.
And the thing with OVW is, like, obviously, like, you know, everyone knows about, like, the 2002 class with Lesnar and Cena and all those guys. And, you know, at one point in time, it was such a well-known company. And then I feel like it just kind of fell off a little bit for a while. But now I feel like it's back up on the rise. I feel like the guys I see in the locker room are super talented. And, like, I think, you know, we're definitely putting on a good product week after week.
Yeah, and I can tell you, you know, I lived in Tennessee most of my life, and now I'm just outside of Tennessee and Kentucky, but I've never seen OVW on television before. And now, I forget what days, maybe Saturday morning, I think even another time slot around here, but flipping through, and it's like OVW wrestling. I'm like, wow, okay. Well, you know, it's gotten out there.
Yeah.
It's not just a local Louisville thing anymore, you know? Yeah,
it's funny because, you know, a lot of like, TV companies and like OVW will tag me in something on social media to, like, just so I can, like, retweet it or promote it. I'm like, God, we're running in all kinds of places. Like, I'm retweeting all kinds of stuff. It's like, okay, well, this place shows the product on Saturday. This place shows it on Sunday. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, we're getting seen.
Yeah. Do y'all do, and I honestly don't know this, do you just do TV or is there house shows?
They do house shows in the summer.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Just local. That's how I understood. Yeah. Pretty much local around.
I think so. So last summer, I wasn't able to do many of them because a lot of them were on Fridays and Saturdays when I kind of already had bookings. So, but I do think that it was mostly in the Louisville area. I know some of the ones that I did over the summer were pretty close to Louisville, like within maybe a 30-mile radius or so.
Yeah. So here's the big question I like to ask sometimes. So you've been in the business a while. Who's the best, most fluid? Just when you came back, you're like, damn, that motherfucker can go. Who's the best guy you ever been in the ring with?
Ooh.
And they're listening too, by the way.
Yeah. I mean,
I know it's a hard question. I hate when people ask me that too. But
yeah, well. And it's just like, I feel like I want to put over, like, a young guy that needs some more recognition. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, I've been in the ring with guys like Abyss, and he's like one of the best guys that's ever stepped foot in a wrestling ring.
Yeah. Well, you can say two, then. Give us two.
Okay. So I will always put over a good buddy of mine. His name's Jake Oman. He wrestles out in he's from Indianapolis. He's been a good friend of mine for a long time. Honestly, I think he's one of the most underrated talents out there. He spent some time in Japan. He goes over, I went over to Europe with him this past fall. Mm-hmm. He's been trying to get out there for a long time. Unfortunately, he's just had bad luck in terms of, getting the contract. Yeah. Another guy local to here is a guy by the name of Pompano Joe. He's been around. He's been around a long time. He started a couple years before me. And I feel like every time he and I get in the ring together, it's just, I always feel like our matches are like my best match ever. Like, Joe is so talented just from every level. He can do it all. So I suggest people looking up Pompano Joe.
We will.
Let's take a quick time out and get a word from one of my dope ass sponsors. And we'll be right back with more Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
for those who love it loud. Pantheon Podcast presents Rockin' Pod Weekend, Nashville, March 17th through the 19th. It's a rock convention featuring panels, interviews, podcasts, signing sessions, vinyl, comic books, pop culture, and collectibles. Over 50 celebrity guests, including members of Mr. Big, Tough, Great White, Keel, Winger, Accept, and Twisted Sister. Live concerts including Rare Hair on Friday, Keel Fest 2 on Saturday, and Eric Martin's Big Acoustic on Sunday. Plus a rockin' comedy show featuring Courtney Cronin-Gold, Don Jameson from That Metal Show, and Craig Gass from The Howard Stern Show, and a whole lot more. Full details at rockinpod.com. Rockin' Pod Weekend is presented by Pantheon Podcasts in association with RFK Media, Third Power Amplification, and BobbyDreyer.com.
Hey folks, this is Wolfie D here, and if you are looking to buy or sell a home in Tennessee or Southern Kentucky, you're going to want to call my buddy, the rock star realtor, Benji Bowie. And you say, Wolfie, how do I get in touch with this rock star? Well, you can call him directly at 615-390-8216. You can go to his website, bowiehomes.com. That's B-U-I-E homes.com. Or you can email him at benbowie34@gmail.com. When you need a home, you need the Rockstar Realtor.
Benji is a member of Exit Realty's Garden Gate team in Gallatin, Tennessee.
Where do you think wrestling is at the moment in the independent scene? I mean, I guess your videos are kind of addressing that, but what are the things that can fix certain things that you don't like, and what are things that they can keep doing that you do like about the current scene?
So this is going to sound very hypocritical coming from me, but I think social media killed professional wrestling.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. I just feel like now there's no, like, cause, when I was growing up, like, The Undertaker's my favorite wrestler of all time. And I remember growing up watching him, and that was, even though I had seen Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, I saw The Undertaker and I was like, this dude is like, for real. Like, he's larger than life. Like, this is, like, it drew me in. And you think about why The Undertaker lasted so long is because you didn't really know much about Mark Calloway.
Right.
And
exactly.
I mean, obviously he's kind of been out there more now that he's not really wrestling anymore, but I feel like guys now, guys today will, and I preach about it all the time. Some people are probably sick of hearing it, but the guys will have a match with, like they'll have a blood feud with this guy. And then once they have their big blow off, they're taking pictures with each other and posting it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like completely ruining all the heat that they just had.
Right.
And I feel like, it just, social media has kind of taken away the mystique around wrestling. And because it used to be a very exclusive club, like it was hard to get in it, hard to get into.
Yeah.
And it was hard to succeed and it was hard to stay in. But now it just seems like, well, I paid my money to a guy who claims to be a trainer, so now I'm on shows.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. I feel like it's too easy to get into, and there's just no, there's no mystique. Fans have easy access to anyone they want access to.
There's no repercussions for not kayfabing. People say kayfabe's dead. I'm sorry. Even if I were to get back in the ring today, you're not going to see me out walking around with the baby faces or anything like that, man. There was when I was still going kind of strong there around 2014, something like that, 16. I was working for traditional championship wrestling out in Arkansas and Missouri. And it's like before the shows, he wanted the heels and the baby faces all go to the picture table. I straight up refused. I mean, I had enough clout, I guess you could say, that I could do that. But I was like, no, it's fucking stupid, man. I didn't even care if I sold a picture that night. I'm a fucking heel. I'm your tag team champion. I'm not going to go sit out there next to the dudes I'm wrestling. Sorry. Not happening.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. You know, what I like about your videos is you do address a lot of that. One of the biggest things that I can say, and Wolfie's heard me say it a million times, is the continuous telegraphing of moves in the ring. And you were a great example of a person that is not necessarily attacking it, but you are addressing it and letting it be known. And actually, in humor, you are doing your best to address it. You know, especially one of the things is the clothesline, where a guy doesn't duck down, so you have to scrape your knuckles on the ceiling to throw the clothesline. Cannot stand that. You actually did a great video about that, which was hilarious. You know, also, you know, just the telegraphing of moves, like the tag teams that are together outside of the ring, and one guy does the suicide dive on them, and it's his buddy, and they all are just there in a cluster, and we know what's going to happen. And, you know, what is that just something that's just going to continue to go, the telegraphing of moves, do you think, or can they fix it?
I mean, certainly they can fix it, but I think so many guys are so fixated on having those big spots that they don't want to fix it.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of guys don't view it as an issue. They just view it as, well, this is how I get over, so I'm going to do this big spot. Everyone get together so I can do my backflip over the ropes, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Or they think that the veterans are trying to hold them back or something by trying to, you know, hey, do this, don't do that. You know, it's like, oh, they're just trying to keep me from getting over, you know.
Yeah, that's another thing. And I'm sorry to cut you off, Jack, but it feels like the younger guys, Wolfie D was and I'm sorry, I'm kind of Wolfie D's spokesperson today, it sounds like, but Wolfie D was the producer on the Ric Flair's last match. He produced a couple matches, and one of the matches, he had a spot that he brought to them and said, hey, we should try this. It was a 4-way match, 4 guys that were high flyers and very talented. We don't need to go into names, but one of the guys is kind of got an attitude issue. But long story short, they basically just said, hey, we'll take that into consideration, and then they didn't do it. And it was just like, what is the producer even there for, you know? And anyway, go ahead, Wolfie. Sorry.
No, I'm agreeing. You know, I've told that story 100 times since it happened. But
yeah, exactly.
And honestly, I really didn't take it personally because, and I'm talking to Jack right now, and Jimmy knows this, I didn't take it personally because before I even walked up to him, Road Dogg and his brother told me, he said, they're not going to listen to you. And it wasn't because of, you know, I didn't have the respect of them or something like that as to where maybe they would listen to somebody else. No, they wouldn't listen to anybody.
Yeah. And I've run into that problem too. Like, you know, there's a company I've mentioned a couple of times. There's a company out here called Future Great Wrestling, and they run every Friday, and I'm there most Fridays. But there's, you know, they have some really, really talented guys there, and there's one guy in particular. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want him to think that I'm dogging him. He's super athletic, good-looking guy, young, but he's stuck in this mindset of spots and like doing all the, you know, the quote-unquote indie-rific stuff. And I try to tell him all the time, I was like, that's all good, but you're a heel, and all this super cool stuff is turning you into a babyface, and that's your job as the heel is to get the babyface over. So you can't be going out there and doing a bunch of cool stuff.
And then he just does it anyway.
he just does it anyway because, you know, I understand, like, when I first started wrestling, you know, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'6", and at the time I was probably 275. And, you know, I was told, you don't need to bump. But my mindset is, well, I want to go out there and show everyone that I can wrestle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens. You know, and I think it's just a maturity thing, just being young in the business. You want to go out there and impress people and show them what you can do. But I hope that eventually he gets to the point that he realizes, oh, I don't need to do all this stuff in order to get over. I need to get over my character more than the moves.
Yeah. Dang, I knew you were tall. Yeah, you kind of now remind me a little bit of Black Jack Lanza, actually, a little bit, Jack. So anyway,
I'll take that.
We'll talk about that later. But anyway, go ahead.
Hey, let me throw this in there, talking about the spots and how things have changed. I came to Danny Davis. It was me and Jamie against Danny and Ken Wayne, the Nightmares. And before the match or whatever, I was like, hey, can we do this thing? We're the heels. And I'm like, hey, can we do this thing when we shoot you off? Duck our clothesline. And this is granted how simple this is. And I said, just duck our clothesline and then we'll catch you with the drop kick, because they always think that when you duck the clothesline, you're going to come back with something. I said, let's change it tonight. He was like, I mean, he didn't cuss me because Danny loved me, but he's like, no fucking way. You guys are fucking heels. You're not doing that to us. Think how simple that is today. I mean, you know, but back then it was like, fuck no.
So, you know, I'm looking at my list of your videos that I just love. Is there a guy that still does the limp handshake these days?
There are. They're few and far between.
Yeah.
But one of them, the one that always comes to my mind, is an old manager that did a lot of stuff in Cincinnati. He doesn't really do anything anymore, but every time I see him, he still does it.
Grabs with 3 fingers, a thumb and 2 fingers.
Or the
Oh my God! I wish he grabbed it with 3 fingers.
It's the Mike Porter.
Yes, God, it's so terrible.
Yeah. Mike Porter was an old promoter. He actually wrestled a little bit too, and he ran NWA Main Event in Nashville. Actually had a pretty successful thing going there for a while, definitely when it was in Columbia. But anyway, he was the first promotion that I worked for in Nashville, and every time he would shake my hand, he would be like, "Hi Jimmy, how you doing tonight?" And it would just be like his voice matched his handshake, and then. I you know, and my trainer that brought me in, he said, there is a handshake, but you don't do that. You shake it like a man. Nobody does that anymore. So
yeah, that's how it was for me too. Like I was told when I first started that, well, you want to shake their hands like this because that shows that you're not stiff. And I'm like,
right.
I don't think a limp handshake is going to tell people that I'm not stiff. Like, and you know, I feel like the normal handshake is kind of, you know, probably because of COVID, a lot of guys just do like fist bumps or something like that now. So
yeah, the normal handshake has kind of gone away in society.
That's true.
Mike Porter, and I'm going to throw this in there because I never liked him, but you know, Jimmy, that he was also I don't remember if he was convicted or not, but I know there was charges on the news because he worked at a funeral home and they were saying he was doing things to dead people, and we'll just leave it. Yes. So the voice and handshake and that just it's
kind of like Peter Lorre or something.
Let me tell you this funny story too. So one of the first times, I think I was 15, 16, and I was trying to get some bookings, right? And a friend of mine knew Mike, okay? So he says, we got to go over to the funeral home. Now, listen, I don't like dead people, man. I'm sorry. I just don't. It freaks me out. And so we go into the funeral home. Mike's, you know, we walk in. We don't see him nowhere. We go up the steps, okay? And we go up there, and there's a room where there's all the coffins where you can shop for coffins and blah, blah, blah. Well, here comes Mike through this door with a body on a gurney. I'm talking toes hanging out and everything. And it was storming outside. And right about that time, fucking lightning and thunder, kaboom, knocks the power out in the fucking funeral home. And I'm standing next to a body on a gurney. I did the old Bugs Bunny, Fred Flintstone. I know I was in midair running for a good 2 seconds, right? Down the stairs and out the front door, and I did not come back. That's my mind.
Yeah. So Mike was a throwback, though, of a different kind. He was clearly maybe other than Byrd, he was one of the last true carnies of the world. So yeah. Gotcha. But anyway, so your videos, man, I guess the locker room name dropper, that's always going to exist, right? That one I love. And sometimes I worry about that on this podcast because I'm like, am I being a name dropper? Because I don't, you know, like we talked to Al Snow or we had Road Dogg or whatever, but it's just like, I always wonder if I'm sounding like the guy that I think is annoying, you know? But anyway, the locker room name dropper, that guy's always there, right?
Let me ask you this, Jack. Do you think, because I feel this way, once I'd seen your videos and everything, I think, and even though we just talked about how social media killed the wrestling business, it also can be used to your advantage as well. And I think you're doing it in a way that's not shitting on the business, basically. You're doing it in a way it's funny. And I think that it's kind of helping you get yourself out there. It's kind of helping you get over. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, that's why I mentioned that me saying that social media killed the business has made me a hypocrite, because that's kind of how I've gotten over the post. It's funny that you mentioned what you said earlier, but it actually seems like a lot of people think that I'm killing the business with the way that I'm doing my videos.
No.
Yeah, that's a
I've heard a lot of people tell me that like they get mad because they feel that I'm exposing the business, but I'm sitting here like, guys, like the business is already exposed. Like,
right. Yeah.
If I'm exposing anything, I'm exposing how stupid some of the stuff we do is.
Right.
But
dude, let me tell you, man, I went recently to a WWE event. Now, I haven't sat in the crowd since 1989, before I got in business. Okay, this is the first time I ever sat in a crowd, because I was taking my girlfriend's son it was a Christmas present. I'm not going to name drop, but I made a few phone calls. But anyway, we had front row tickets and everything, and I sat there and watched it. I cannot tell you how many slaps I saw, heard. I mean, it was like every single match, 10 times a match. Dude, they're doing it on drop kicks now, man. It's like, what the fuck, man? And I hate it, because as far as I know, Bobby Eaton was the first one to ever really do the slap punch. And it was great. You didn't see it coming. He didn't do it all the time. And I'll throw the slap punch every now and then. But if you do it every time on every move, just like what we're saying, everybody knows it now, and it's become a fucking joke.
Yeah. And I throw a good slap punch in there every once in a while too. But but like you said, like if kind of the veteran gimmick started when I first started doing the veteran, I made a fake petition on change.org to ban the super kick from wrestling, but it's because you see the super kick 15 times a show.
Mm-hmm.
And at this, it used to be a finisher, and I understand, guys like Tracy Smothers and, Chris Adams and stuff, they used it as a normal move sometimes, but in my generation, that was a finishing move.
Right.
And when I first started wrestling, the Canadian Destroyer was the coolest move anyone had ever seen.
Right.
And now they're just they're just double downs or transition moves. And it's, going back to the thigh slap and stuff, I'm seeing guys that are taking moves that are slapping their thighs.
Yeah.
And it's just, but the thigh slap has become my signature now. So I guess, it's somehow that's the thing that people have latched onto.
I have an idea for you if you hadn't already done it.
Yeah.
Are you a heel or a babyface?
Primarily heel.
Okay. Well, this may not work, but I was thinking, the babyface, the old school, you get the crowd clapping your hands, getting them to clap with you. You should start thigh slapping and get everybody in the audience to thigh slap along with you. If you could do that, you would be over in my book.
It's funny. It doesn't really happen in OVW, but I love some of the smaller indie shows where people kind of know me because of my social media stuff. I do get fans that they'll just be yelling from the crowd, "Slap your thigh, Jack," and then I'll do it, and it'll actually get a pop, and I'm like, well, I'm a heel. I shouldn't have done that, but it was funny. So
yeah, it's okay to be funny every now and then as a heel.
Yeah. What's funny, speaking of your gimmick and stuff, I actually have a friend of mine, Sean Hamilton. I'll give him a shout out. He loves OVW. He actually comes and see you guys quite a bit. And he was telling me that he came up to you and said that he thought you should do a state trooper gimmick. Do you remember that guy asking you to do that?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. And Sean's a great guy, huge fan of wrestling, loves comic books, movies and stuff. And I was like, Sean, I think he really is doing well with this veteran thing, but maybe he can save that for the future or something. But I was like, how do you address that? You know what I mean? I know where you're coming from. You're liking what you're doing, and thank you for enjoying that. But I don't think so right now.
Right. Yeah. The veteran's working out for me, and I spent a lot of years just kind of spinning my wheels, not really going anywhere. And then, pretty much when I came up with this gimmick, which was completely by accident, it was just a throwaway thing I said to a friend at a show one day. And then the next thing I know, I was like, oh, I should do that. And then, the veteran was born. But I feel very comfortable doing this gimmick. And I feel like that's the big thing for me, is because I kind of just did a generic big guy gimmick for a long time. And it very much had a ceiling, and I didn't really feel comfortable doing it, because I do feel like I have a good amount of personality, but doing a gimmick like that, I can't really show it. So doing something like this, you know, I can, and not only can I play it sort of like someone who's kind of poking fun at modern wrestling, but I can also play it as, you know, the guy who is, you know, angry that all these young guys are ruining his business and he's coming to get them. So there's different levels to it, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Maybe you should carry an edition of Meltzer's newsletter, if that's still a thing, a hard copy. Carry it to the ring and tear it up and shit. You know, maybe that. And I'm sure you're getting all kinds of, especially for your videos. How many of the boys, especially, are like, "Hey, man, you need to do this as a video." How many suggestions are you?
I get a lot. Yeah, I do get a lot of messages from people suggesting things to me. And a lot of times, like, I'll take down the ideas because I'm always looking for ideas. But
right.
You know, a lot of times it's, if I don't use their idea, I at least use some sort of snippet. But yeah, I do get a lot of people suggesting stuff to me.
And I think we would be doing your pals an injustice if we didn't mention, I mean, you've got somebody holding the camera, you've got somebody working with you in those videos. Who's everybody that's helping you out on these? Give them a plug.
Yeah.
Well, primarily the person holding the camera is my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nice.
And then
go wifey.
Yeah, and then in most of my videos, you see the guy that I'm in there with is a bold gentleman. That is Aaron Williams, who is another fantastic worker from the Cincinnati area. He's been doing awesome on the indies for a long time. Deserves to be, you know, much like Jake Oman, deserves to be at a higher level than he is. He's so talented. And then, you know, a lot of those other talents are just a lot of times I film my videos at the FGW arena, so it's a lot of FGW guys.
Gotcha. Cool. And can you enlighten us? Is there something in production right now, or is it still in your head? Have you got what's the next video going to be like?
I think probably the next one I'm going to do is another one of my indie versus pro videos, because every now and then I like to throw one of those out there to piss off the indie marks.
Yeah, those are my favorite, actually. So.
Oh, thank you. Those are the ones that get me the most heat. So they're my favorite too. But you know, I have another. I just came up with an idea. I'm probably going to film it here soon. Basically, the premise is how to make a heel more heel.
Okay.
How to make a heel more heel. Indie versus pro.
Yeah, I love it.
That was just like a separate video, but
that'll be just so you got to have a series, kind of like we do. We have the interviews that we bring people on, like yourself, and then we have our top 10, and then we have Ask Wolfie, and we have all kinds of. So you have your own kinds of series on your show. I get messages all the time telling us ideas for the show, and some of them are good, and some of them we'll never do. We get questions all the time. That's you know, we have a lot of people that are listeners of our show that are very active with us, and I definitely appreciate that, guys. Thank y'all for listening. So I imagine that you get that same thing. So that's awesome, man.
Yeah, and you know, if there's anyone who follows me, I just want them to know I do appreciate everything. You know, sometimes I get a lot of comments and stuff in my videos, and I don't always have time or even see the comments to respond, but I certainly appreciate all the likes and comments and shares and all that. It's helped me out a ton. It's very much appreciated.
And it's crazy to watch something blow up too, isn't it? Like your videos, like boom, okay, there's an extra 1,000 there, just happened, you know. So
it's funny because like certain videos that I don't expect to do anything are the ones that blow up.
Yeah,
and it's like there was like I have one video. It was actually one of my indie versus pro. It's the one where I'm doing like the head scissors.
Yeah.
And it's like the indie version is just like very much telegraphed that we're going to do a head scissors.
Right. Exactly.
For some reason on Facebook, that video did 2 million views and then like 1.7 on TikTok.
Right.
And I don't know what it was about that particular video, but it blew up and it was crazy to see.
It's something, man. It's crazy.
Why don't you take this time right now to like tell the listeners that don't know where to find you, where can they find you on social media? What's all your stuff, man?
Okay, yeah. So Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok is at @VetJackVaughn. And then Facebook, it's just my normal page. So I do have a fan page, but I don't really use it much. So I'm actually planning on getting rid of it. So you can just find me on Facebook at just Jack Vaughn. It's a picture of me in my black ring jacket.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. And I always try to, get in a question talking about the future a little bit. What do you think is next for you? Let's say in 5 years, where do you expect you'll be, Jack?
I'm not sure where I expect to be, but the places where I'd like to be, so just in the near future, I'm getting to do a lot more traveling than I've ever done. Like this weekend, I'm going to be going up to Chicago and then Wisconsin. And then I have, shows booked in the coming months in Pennsylvania and Oklahoma, which I've never been to. And I've been getting a lot of people reaching out to me from different places across the country. I went to Europe this past November, and I'm hoping to go back again, hopefully this fall. So nice. I'm hoping, if I'm cool with wherever I go, my ultimate goal is I just want to have, before I'm done wrestling, I want to have at least some sort of run on one of the major companies, regardless of who it is. It doesn't really matter to me whether it's, one of the, WWE, AEW, or, a smaller company like Impact or the NWA. I really just want to have just a run with like a national company before I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a no-brainer for NWA right now. I mean, I would, they need to be signing you right now as far as that goes. And then also Impact, I think, could easily use you. But I would love to see the veteran, at the big time, man. I really would. I would love to see how this character, now, who knows? You may not even be, you could be the Crimson Bandit or something up there. But right. And hopefully they would not change that, obviously. But I would really love to see a good throwback because we've seen how FTR has been taken on, and they're consider themselves a bit of a throwback team, a little bit of the the Brain Busters mixed with the Midnight Express or whatever you say. But I would love to see that in a singles run for somebody, and I think you're the guy to do it, man. I would love to see that. Yeah,
and I appreciate that. There's a lot of fans that are like, your gimmick would work so well with an AEW. And it's like, I agree, granted, I'm just kind of poking fun at the indie stuff, but
sure,
I could definitely, if given the proper promo time, I could definitely turn the gimmick into something that could very easily get under the skin of AEW fans. I have no doubt about that.
Absolutely. Oh
yeah. You could kill the Young Bucks on.
Yeah.
You could. Yeah. And maybe that would hurt you, but
I'm not gonna say any names, but I know that at least most of the bigger companies are aware of who I am now, just because
I've got to imagine,
there's a lot of people that work with those companies that follow me and that have actually reached out to me and tell me how much they enjoy the videos. So I know that these companies are aware of me. I just need to maybe capitalize somehow and figure out how to get my foot in the door.
Well, let's play this game real quick, Wolfie D. So right. Wolfie's been there, and Jack, you're talking about you feel like you need to be there. So what do you think, Jack? What's his next step? If you were guiding Jack right now, Wolfie D, what's his next step, you think?
Keep doing what you're doing, because the thing is, man, from my experience and what I'd always heard, and it came to be true, you're going to get your break when you least expect it. When you're trying so hard to get there, it seems to never happen. But when you're just out there doing your thing, and then that call comes out of nowhere. That's my opinion. That's the way it's always happened with me.
So just don't expect it, Jack.
Yeah. Don't think about it, Jack.
Yeah.
Well, and it's great because I'm having more fun now with wrestling than I ever have. So even if nothing comes of it, I still feel, it's, maybe this is very boastful of me to say, but I feel like at the very least I'll be able to say, you know what, at one point in time I was one of the most talked about people on independent wrestling.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Which I think is an accomplishment.
It is, and I 100% agree with that. I feel like you are very much. Absolutely. So I expect big things from you, brother. I really do. Right? We have a lot of people that listen to our show. We're proud of that fact. And, we know that there are people that listen that actually can do these things. So hopefully, you guys get off your duff and get Jack Vaughn a contract, y'all. Because, if you don't take him, the other guys will. Just keep that in mind.
At least he'll come out of this show with a fucking action figure.
Yeah, exactly, Jack. That's coming soon, brother. I promise. Everybody gets one now. We can't get Wolfie one, but we're getting everybody else one.
Fucking Reno Riggins comes on. He's been obscure for quite a while. Great friend of mine, but just been, out of the business for so long. He comes on here. He suddenly got an action figure. And the same with Tony. Got one. Fuck,
Doug
man.
Basham's doing 300 podcasts now. No, we love Doug. Doug's great.
I love Doug Basham.
Me too, man.
Dude, there's another guy that's just a font of so much just experience and just try to get as much out of him as you can because that guy's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And like you listen to Doug talk, you can just tell how much he loves wrestling. Like even to this day, he just loves the business.
He does, yeah. You could tell when we were talking to him, he would get giddy about certain things, and we were just like in the same place, It's awesome. Yeah. So yeah, well, thank you, Jack. Like I said, I was really wanting to get you two together, and I've talked a lot on this, but I wanted you two to get together because I wanted to hear how you would, I just wanted to sit back and listen and hear I've ran my mouth more than anybody, but but thank you for coming on, man.
When I take us out, I'm just going to say thank you for listening to Live and in Color with Jimmy Street.
No, you're not.
But no, man. Hey, seriously, we appreciate you coming on, man. Got to wrap this up. We're kind of heading into our time frame here. But yeah, man, I hope nothing but the best for you, man. Please keep doing the videos. I love them. And you asked Jimmy, I don't watch a lot of stuff when it comes to wrestling. I definitely watch your videos though, because they make me laugh. So keep doing that, man. Keep doing what you're doing, and I hope good things happen to you. You seem like a guy that's got your head on right. You seem like a pretty nice fella. So I hope the best for you. And for Jack, and what are we doing next, Jimmy? What are we coming back with at the end here?
Ask Wolfie anything.
Oh, shit. All right. So, folks, let's thank Jack once again, and we will be back with Ask Wolfie D Anything, except whether he's got pants on or not.
DJ, hit the music. Go Reds. All right, we are back with Ask Wolfie D Anything. And as always, Wolfie D, we've got some great questions here. They've really kind of opened up to this, and the listeners have really, become, I guess, part of the show with us. And it's nice to see this. So, we always are welcoming questions. Just use that hashtag #AskWolfie, and that way we can always click on that and I can find new questions. So I definitely appreciate it. But we've got them across the board. We've had them on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, on it all. So it's been great to see. So anyway, the first question is from listener Ben Jenkins. He's on Facebook, and it's a question. He says, "Will you ever work with current Memphis wrestling?"
I was going to at one point, and then just things happened or whatever. I mean, as far as in-ring wrestling, I just can't.
Right.
But I mean, if I was asked to do something on the side and it made sense for me and sense for them, yeah, I'd do something like that.
Maybe like a signing again. I mean, the thing is from what I understand, like Memphis is kind of jumbled up right now. But I do know that the company I would assume he's talking about is the one that's called Memphis Wrestling, right? And so that one, like you said, you were booked to work on that one, but some family stuff came up, and then you just haven't worked it out again because honestly, you kind of slowed it down at that point. You were only taking major bookings like Impact Wrestling and Ric Flair's last match after that. Yeah. So just kidding. Yeah. Anyway, I would always say if the money's right, you'll always be there.
The money's right and it sounds right. If I can help, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, cool. Well, that's pretty much it on that one. So the next one is Trey Murphy at MurphyTrey934 on Twitter. This one, God love him. This is literally the most interesting question we've ever had. Okay, so
wow, okay,
yeah. He says, "How did you come up with the name Wolfie?"
Well, that's not real hard. I mean, my last name is Wolf. When I started wrestling, I was Airwolf, and just everybody started calling me Wolfie. I mean, that's just basically how that happened.
So let's make this longer here. Let's make this question go longer here. So, yeah, because we could just stop it right there. What were you called before you got into wrestling? What was the normal name that people would call you?
In school, I mean, I went by my middle name, Warren.
Okay.
But as I got older, when you got a last name of Wolf, I mean, people call you that.
In high school, were people saying, "Hey, Wolfie"?
Not necessarily Wolfie, just Wolf, or maybe some Wolfie. But yeah, it just kind of started there because I was in high school when I started wrestling. So then some people, like, I tried to kayfabe it from a lot of people just because I wasn't supposed,
right.
The way I was told, you got to be 18 to do this, and I wasn't. And that's why they put me under a mask and yada, yada, yada. But yeah, it was just, I kayfabed it from a lot of people, but some people did know, so.
Yeah. And I mean, that would be almost impossible to hide in a certain sense, especially
and people have always asked, what's the D stand for? Well, we know what D stands for these days. But a lot of people thought it stood for Dundee, and they thought that I was Jamie's brother. So.
Yeah. And that's funny, too, because I think the D in Dundee, I think people still kind of mix that up. And you're right. I do think a lot of people think you and Jamie are related. And it's interesting to hear that. But it's always the people that don't really know anything about Memphis wrestling. You know? I mean, even the guy that owns the biggest podcasting company in the world, mistook you guys. And it's just funny because there's nothing about Jamie that has Wolf involved in it, the name or anything. And Jamie's more like a fox. But anyway, so yeah, let's just clear that up. The D is not a Dundee. And
the D actually does stand for the D. But anyway.
So there you go, kids. Wolfie came from a nickname that you were given when you got in the wrestling business. And literally the D is the D. So yeah, pretty much it. All right, Trey, hopefully that answered your question there, sir. So Dawn Davis from Facebook asks, so the Ox Harley deal at Ian's, y'all cool?
Yeah, we're very cool. He even says, Wolfie made me famous. I beat him up.
Throwing hands with the man made him famous. I love it. And if you think about it, that can happen. Who ever heard of mass transit that New Jack almost killed in the ring? Yeah. So yeah, think about that. Mass transit had never been heard of before. And then, anyway.
It's stabbed.
You didn't stab. Actually, Jamie stabbed, you got angry at Ox and Pondo, and anyway, that's a whole long story. We've actually watched that match, so go back and watch PG-13 is Hardcore way back in the archives, and you'll hear all about that. Yeah. He said also he loved the heat that PG could draw. So he was a fan of your heel work. He really enjoyed that, which, makes sense that you all came out as heels and could be heels, so yeah,
we could work either way, man. That was the part of the magic with me and Jamie. We could do it either way.
Yeah. So if you'd have gone to WWF like Steve Kearns said, and they said, do you go both ways? You would have said, yes, you can be heel or baby. So.
Well, in WWF, going both ways might mean something else. So.
Yes, I can work heel and baby. And they laughed. Yeah. So the heat that PG could draw, I mean, that, that's Jamie could get heat. Just
well documented.
Yeah. Well-documented heat. And then you could add to that too. So, the beauty of that and the heat that PG could draw, hey man, I love it. So anyway, well, that is it for Ask Wolfie D Anything today. Kind of a light workload there, but with that being said, tell them about what you got coming up in Pulaski, Tennessee, Wolfie D.
We got the Kayfabe Cave, man. We're going down there, and that'll be our first signing together in quite a while. This dude's got everything in his place. Old school stuff. It's not just wrestling either. It's just old school memorabilia, along with a lot of wrestling stuff. Todd is a great fan of PG-13. He owns Jamie's Cyberpunk outfit. I understand the Cyberpunks are supposed to be there, so we'll see how that goes.
That's awesome. And I can't wait to hear all about it. That is coming up this Saturday, February 25th at the Kayfabe Cave in Pulaski, Tennessee. Yeah. Definitely don't miss this opportunity to see the Cyberpunks in, a once in a lifetime opportunity, because, the Cyberpunks, they don't come around, do they? No, they really don't. And they're, like I said, the whole outfit is there at Todd's. And I have Cyberpunk Fire's mask in my house that he gave me. Nice. And I'll be bringing it down. So awesome. Well, get your opportunity. Get some pictures with those guys, get some autographs, go to Todd's place, see how everything is at the Kayfabe Cave. I'm sure it's a great place. And honestly, you guys only work with the best, so I'm expecting a great story and a great time. So, Jamie Dundee, Wolfie D together, this is the first time in the area in a long time. So get it together. Anyway, well, I guess that's it for today's show. Wolfie D, if you don't mind, wrap us up here, brother.
Yeah, man. And once again, thanks to Jack Vaughn for coming on and talking to us about his extremely funny videos. I love them to death. And if you haven't seen them, please go look it up. But once again, man, this has been Wolfie D and Jimmy across the street. And we're saying so long. That sounds like Lance Russell. So long, everybody. Live and in color with Wolfie D.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Sheik, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all. And all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling. Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
That's right, it's the Talk of Middle Tennessee, the channel you love to hate and the channel you hate to love. It's Brian Turner from Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. And if you're looking for matches from Wolfie D to Jerry Lawler to Dusty Rhodes and the team that put a pimp before your eyes and a goatee between your thighs, Booty Call and Athena, go to lostwrestling.com. See, I made it easy for you. Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. Booyah.
Join me, Gene Jackson, for the Jackson Interaction Podcast, where I'll be doing one-on-one interviews with people from the world of professional wrestling, as well as stand-up comedy. You can get them anywhere podcasts are available in both video and audio form, but you can find them all at genejacksonpod.com.
So that was another great episode. Hey, Wolfie, tell them where they can find you on social media.
Jimmy, they can find me in the club, bottle full of bub. I'm just kidding. They can find me on Facebook. My personal page is Warren Wolf, WOLFE. I'm on Instagram at WarrenWolf13.
You can always find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Live Wolfie D. Here's the thing. Wolfie always has offers for his autographed photos. He has a selection of some awesome photos from throughout his career that he will autograph and personalize any way that you want him to. Just contact him either directly at his personal Facebook page or through any one of our other pages, and we'll make sure you get in contact directly with Wolfie. Get those photos, right, Wolfie?
Yeah, I've got some good stuff on there, to help with the podcast.
Folks, if you can't get out to a show to meet Wolfie D, there's nothing like that, especially for the fans of PG-13 and Wolfie D. And before we go, you can always find me, your host, Jimmy Street, at jamesrockstreet on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
And hey, Jimmy, before we go real quick, I just want to add in there, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate, first of all, the work you've done for this podcast. You have worked your butt off. Secondly, the people that are liking the page. Beyond that, even more, is the people that are listening, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and remember, guys, the podcast drops a new episode every Monday at noon, and our past episodes are streaming now on demand on all major podcast formats. Thanks again.
I got a cap for your dome.
He got a cap for your dome.
I got a cap
He
for
got
your
a
dome.
cap for your dome.
For your dome.
He got a cap for your dome.
And here we go. The original white boy that came out sagging, not bragging, don't be hating, cause I'm spitting the truth. Still livin' in color. Bum rush your mother, utilize a hubcap unlike any other. Back in the day, I was NOD, and I was P to the G, plus the 1 and the 3. In case you forgot, they call me Wolfie D. Been cloned and copied so many times, tired of suckers taking credit for what is mine. You know who you are without me name dropping. Wrestling's first white boy coming out hip hopping. Been doing it like this since 92. Laid low for a while and you thought I was through. Listen real close to these rhymes that I've injected. This shit's so sick it makes your ears get infected. Mad skills, no faking, there is no one great. Cause I'm bringing more folks than Obi-Wan or Vader. Not here to play games, so you better beware. You don't like me, so what? I really don't care. Like time I keep ticking and I can't be stopped. You sucker step to the side unless you wanna get dropped. With my finish, I'll straight knock you out. Please allow me to tell you what it's all about. I'm gonna wind it up, then I'm driving it home. It's Wolfie D, baby. I got a cap for your dome. I got a cap for your dome.
We got a cap for your dome. We got a cap for your dome. This has been a James Rock Street production.